Hello and welcome to the Intersection podcast. We are recording live at Intertraffic in Amsterdam. My name is Craig Milligan, road safety engineer at Miovision, and I'm pleased to have as our guest Johan Diepens, founder and CEO of Mobycon, a consulting company here in the Netherlands that operates globally. Johan, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about sustainable safety and the type of work that we're doing together in the Netherlands, and I really look forward to it. Johan Diepens, can you start by telling us about the company that you lead, the types of projects that you do, and the types of clients that you work for?
Okay, I started the firm a long time ago. I feel old when I say that. 86. I was just from the university at that time, and we are 38 years this year.
Congratulations!
Yeah, so we're moving to the 40s. But what we do is that our goal is from our company, our mission is that we make the world less dependent on the car.
Okay.
And that means that we think a lot about active mobility, about traffic safety, but also in fact how people have the freedom to move from A to B in a good way. Yeah. And also that the space that we have in our cities, in our rural areas, in our villages, that it is usable for everybody, for kids, for elderly, for everybody, because mobility is a part of life. If you can't move anymore, or if you have to wait for people to help you, then in fact one of the important things in life is a little bit gone by that way. So that's the reason why we think walking and cycling is very important. And not to forget, we always say that everybody has the right to come home. That means traffic safety. If 1.2 million people die each year in traffic around the world,
awesome.
I think that we should invest in ways, in thinking, in plans, how we can make the world safe for traffic safety.
I like what you said about freedom to move, because if you don't have the freedom to move in the way that you need to, that's a foundational freedom for so many other freedoms.
If you look here in the Netherlands, then you see that kids are cycling on the street. Kids from 6 years old, 7 years old, but also people from 80, 85 still cycling. And they go out for a ride because it's beautiful weather, or they go to the shops.
Yeah.
And that is very important that you make it possible. So that's the reason why we are focusing on that area.
The freedom to cycle at 85 years old is not a freedom that people have in other parts of the world necessarily.
No.
But unless you work hard on it.
Yeah. And but we always say that a lot of countries are focusing on a guy from 30 years old who can do everything. So he can drive cars, he can walk, he can cycle. So that is a stereotype that a lot of designs and systems are working for.
So talking about ideas behind designs and systems, we hear a lot about Vision Zero and safe systems. It's gaining popularity around the world. But before these became buzzwords, you could say, there was an idea called sustainable safety. It's a Dutch concept, I would say. Can you tell us about how the idea of sustainable safety came to be, and what are some of its foundational principles?
Yeah, I think we have to go back a long time. In my youth, in fact,
Okay.
In the 60s, what we saw was that a lot of cars, the amount of cars was increasing. It was new, and everybody should be perfect. And what you saw, especially here in Amsterdam and all kinds of areas, that a lot of kids were killed in traffic because kids were on the street and they played and they did things. At that point, at the late 60s, parents stood up on the street and they said they had to stop this. Okay. There should be a change. And it was also here at the time here in Amsterdam that also cyclists put their bike on the street and lay down and said it should stop.
Okay.
Now, that was a long period, and in the 70s and early 80s, in fact, we defined what we call sustainable safety.
Okay.
And that means that the world should be safe for a longer term, that the principles should be right. And also, in fact, we made at that time the basic system of mixing and separation. So what you do around the Netherlands, what you see is if a car is allowed to go 50, we always separate cyclists and pedestrians.
Okay.
A separate system. And that was in fact also a good luck afterwards for the bike, because we have a system with 30 where everything is mixed and is safe, and bumps and all the stuff. We invited the bumps, in fact, in the Netherlands for that reason. And if you are on a street where there's more car traffic and also the speed is higher, then there's a separation. means intersections, roundabout, and that is, I think, one of the
Yeah.
secrets from the Netherlands that at that time it's invented.
Yeah, so you can have separation and speed, or you can have mixing and lower speeds.
Yeah, because you know also that when you're hit by a car with 30, you have 50% chance that you will die,
Yeah,
and if you're hit by a car with 50, you have
yeah,
85% chance that you will die. So it's a logical
yeah,
choice for me.
yeah. This concept of separation is gaining ground overseas,
Yeah.
you know, in North America for sure. So thanks for telling us about the background to sustainable safety. Now, if there's one thing that the Dutch are famous for around the world, it's the tremendous cycling mode share that you have. And so you already talked about separation and speeds, but can you tell us some of the other foundations to the Dutch success in getting a tremendously high bicycle mode share?
I think we were a little bit lucky during what I already talked about, the 60s and the 70s and perhaps the early 80s, that people stayed on the bike in the Netherlands. I think what you see when I arrive in a lot of other countries, we work around the world, in the US, in Canada, in India, here in Europe, of course, in Africa. But what I see a lot of time is that when I see pictures from 1920s or something, and you see people walking and cycling, and a few cars,
Yeah.
and but then you arrive and then you see nobody cycling anymore. That means that in a few generation, people lost, in fact, the knowledge about cycling or in the system. In the Netherlands, it stayed, in fact, and that means that you saw also that it was decreasing, in fact, in those time,
Okay.
but it went up again.
Yeah.
And it went up again, I think, for a lot of reasons. Why it's fun. We have a good climate to cycle.
Yeah.
We also have a recreational system. In
Okay.
1905, we had the first recreational cycle paths in the Netherlands, in the north. And we have a big network where you can cycle, just to have fun and look at nature and talk with each other. So a lot of reasons. We do more than just going to the shops on the bike.
Okay.
But also was relevant that in the 70s we had the oil crisis.
Right.
We had no oil here.
Yeah.
We had car-free Sundays. And in fact, at that time in the brain system, also besides traffic safety and stuff, we had a whole program that we should work on to be less reductions on oil. And that means that we want a public transport. For traffic, it means public transport, cycling, and less cars, in fact. Now, we still have a lot of cars, but we also have a lot of bikes. In fact, we got more bikes in the Netherlands than people. We got 80 million people, and we got 23 million bikes.
Wow.
So a lot of people have two bikes, one for this, one for that.
Yeah.
And that means that it works in our system, it's available.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a combination of a system, it's fun, and there were some social pressures. But, you know, so many countries are looking to the example here and aspiring to increase their mode share. So that's helpful to hear about that. Johan, I remember meeting you. I think I met you for the first time at a CARS conference in Calgary. And that meeting was a catalyst for your company, Mobycon, becoming an enthusiastic user and a pioneer of the Miovision safety technology, the video safety technology in Netherlands and also elsewhere in Europe, in many places in Europe. What initially excited you about video-based near-miss safety studies when we first met?
I think since we started, we were working on traffic safety, so sustainable safety we worked on, and you see also Vision Zero, that we want to get, in fact, nobody killed in traffic.
Yeah.
And what we see in the discussion that you always are, besides the theoretical basis about mixing and separation and stuff, you also look at the black spots and what happened, in fact.
Yeah.
But what you want to do is that you can show people what nearly happened or what can happen on a certain spot. So that was at that time a good moment or a good match. That what you showed me at that time was that you could give us a little bit a view on what happened nearly.
Yeah.
And that simple word nearly.
Yeah.
I've learned here from a professor here in the Netherlands that we need 40,000 nearly misses for one accident.
Yeah.
So if we can show that data about the 40,000 nearlies, we can prevent things happening from really.
Yeah.
And that's quite simple to say it so, but that was a little bit key that you gave us.
Yeah, and it's been so fun to work on this with you. That's the premise, right? If you look at what nearly happened, you have a picture of what's going to happen in the future, likely. Yeah. And if you can predict it, you can prevent it, and that's what we're working on together. So in addition to doing the safety studies through Miovision, the video safety studies, Mobycon also owns a significant fleet of our Scout cameras, the Miovision Scout camera, to collect video that you need to do the study. What does your team like about these cameras, and how has it been helpful for your consulting firm to have your in-house fleet of these cameras?
Yeah, I think what was relevant for us that we can collect data, and the cameras showed us that it is, besides then the nearly accidents, it's also the counting part is simple in fact, and we have real data about what's happening, and also the moment we have a lot of different types of traffic here. In fact, we got the whole scale. We can say about 50 different modes that are going here. That sounds silly, but we got little scooters, bigger scooters, electric bikes, normal bikes, cargo bikes, cars, and further and further. And we are still matching or finding out new ways to look at that and to count that. And I think that's also relevant data for our clients. But also sometimes when you have to make a new proposal for something, then it's good to know what's actually happening there. So that's good.
Yeah, from the cameras you get data, and that data informs decisions. Yeah. And that's very interesting how mixed the mobility system has become, and the mix is changing over time. And to respond to that, you need to know the data on the mix and the volumes and everything like that. So great. So can you share a few highlights from notable projects using the Miovision near-miss safety studies in the Netherlands? Like, tell us maybe about a city where you deployed it, what kind of safety issues you discovered, maybe what kind of fixes you were able to recommend as a consultant. In your words, some highlights from putting this technology to work and getting some results.
First to know, I think if you listen to what happens in the Netherlands, you have the feeling that we are a very innovative country here, and we are, of course. But on the other part, you see that new developments, like this nearly misses analysis, is something new. And what we also see is that it takes some time before people adapt it, in fact, in their systems.
Okay.
So first we were the real pioneers a few years ago. People say, "Whoa, it's now very interesting," but not for me. And now we see more and more that it's happening, that we are asked to do it, to use it. And I think that's interesting to see that it is landing a little bit as a new approach, in fact. And I think the other part is that, by example, in the city of Zwolle, where we're also based, by a few cities where we're based in the Netherlands, but there was a place where they want to spend millions to redo it, in fact. And with the cameras at that time, we showed that it was in fact quite simple where the conflicts were, and with a little bit investment, 50,000 euros, we could solve that problem at that time. So it's not only that you can show where the problems are and that you have to invest and do a lot of redesign, but sometimes you can also see where that is a little miss, in fact, in the design, where it goes wrong. And that's for me still a good example that by knowing the nearly accidents, it was quite simple to make it better for everybody.
That's such an interesting example, and it has happened so many times since the very beginning of this video technology. The first time we ever deployed it, it showed that $20 million urgently needed to be spent, and that budget was unlocked. And then other times we used it, it showed, just like what you had in Zwolle, your idea to spend $20 million or 5 or 10 or whatever is not actually necessary. You can do a more minor intervention that will be effective. So just helping answer the question and the right treatment at the right time and the right cost. And I'm glad that saved money as a result of that. So you're also in the middle of a big project in Germany, right? And it's using the near-miss technology, and it has something to do with looking at Netherlands and Germany. Can you tell us a bit about this project and what are the objectives and how it's going?
What I said earlier, that of course I raised the company in a time that we start mixing and separation.
Yes.
And that for us it is quite logic that with 50 kilometers an hour you separate.
Okay.
And when we arrived for our discussions in Germany, now we bring that on the table. We say, this is the good part.
Yes.
And then they say, can you prove it that it is safer than other?
Okay.
And in fact, to be honest, we couldn't prove it. We have got data, but how to combine and to look at a German intersection and a Dutch intersection.
Okay.
So that was in fact the project that we got together with the University of Dresden. Compare similar situations in the Netherlands and in Germany.
Yeah.
And look at safety for cyclists, pedestrians, and cars.
Mm-hmm.
So we did a research about find those places that we could compare.
Yeah.
And of course we said, okay, we have to look then at what's really happening there, but we also should look at what's nearly happening there.
Yes.
And that's what we did the last 2 years for the Ministry of Germany.
Yeah, and I hope that the evidence coming out of that can help our German colleagues to, understand, what is the evidence base for a certain design practice. And I love it. That's not the only cross-sectional study that we've supported. We've supported huge cross-sectional studies in North America to uncover what is the safest design practice. Let's look at a few hundred locations with varying design practices, and we can find the types of designs. We call it low conflict design. And you discover that by putting the cameras up and watching. So I'm so glad you're doing that with the university colleagues and everybody in Germany. So we're at a technology conference, so we have to dream a bit about the future. At Miovision, one of our dreams for the future is that cities will start to have not just these portable cameras, but they will have continuous measurement of safety in real time. What are some of your thoughts on what technologies we need in the future for road safety?
For me, but that's pure personal, is that I believe in ESA, intelligent speed adaptation.
Okay. Yeah,
and
that's a big topic here.
And that I do already for a long time. But you see that the people on the street everybody's ready for it, but the politicians are not, in fact. And also the car industry doesn't want it.
Really?
Now it gets more and more because new cars it should be in it.
Yeah.
But when I was there we did, I think, late 80s, or in the 90s, did a study there together with TNO. And what I saw there was that if we don't have to regulate the speed anymore for cars and for others, and also mopeds and everything, then you can design a street in another way. If you talk about technical dreams, that's my dream.
That's a topic many people in the Canadian road safety community are excited about.
Thank you to our listeners for tuning in to the Intersection podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.